If you're trying to get a Mount Whitney permit, there's a new service that basically checks the recreation.gov website and posts any openings on Twitter, Facebook groups, and I think Discord as well. Totally free. The only thing is you have to monitor it to see what opens up. But if you want to do something last minute, I think it's a great way to grab a permit. And if you want to get a permit that is for a specific date with a specific amount of people in your group, there's still that website, Outdoor Status. It does cost a couple bucks, but I have used that and it works fairly well. Talking about Mount Whitney had, I think, 3 deaths in 1 week recently. If you're doing Mount Whitney for the first time or you're not familiar with what happens, those people died on the Mountaineers routes. If you're just doing the regular Mount Whitney trail, the hike to the summit, that's not where these people were. Somebody got hit by a rock, I think, and other people fell. If you're doing the regular hike, you should be okay as long as you respect the conditions, respect your limits, and train and prepare properly. Somebody asked me, is it safe to do it in June this year or there's too much snow? I haven't been up there. I don't do it in the snow. And I did look at the snow map. It looks like there's snow all around it. I'm guessing this is probably an error. Maybe there's snow in the middle as well. Bring micro spikes, trekking poles, and if you don't feel comfortable, don't continue. It's still just a nice place to go and visit and hike. And, just remember, if you do go up through the snow with your spikes, you got to come back down. It's going to be a lot slower than you would be going if you were going uphill. So just a word to the wise there. And as always, check the park alerts just to make sure maybe there's some info there. And there's a website called Whitney Zone. I'll put a link to that under this video, along with the permits and everything I talk about will be under the video if you want to check it out. But check the trail reports. Speaking of which, I saw in Phoenix, they're going to proactively close down Camelback Mountain, which can get crazy hot, obviously, in the summertime. And I spoke years ago to somebody who worked in search and rescue, and they told me that Camelback Mountain has more rescues out of anywhere else in the United States. So obviously, if it's hot out, don't go there. Don't risk it. Also wanted to mention permits. There's the Lost Coast Trail, which is a great hike or overnight backpacking trip in Northern California. They're introducing a new permit fee. It's going to be $12. And I think that's on top of the fee that you pay to actually get a permit. So just a heads up there. Not a lot of money, but I could see this happening more and more. A lot of people are going outside and there's only a limited amount of space and limited amount of resources in terms of keeping trails clean and keeping them, up to date. So it is what it is. Have you guys seen this thing for the hiking, the exoskeleton? It was a Kickstarter project, kind of silly. Basically, it straps on your legs and gives you extra power when you walk or you run. I saw some YouTubers had been talking about it, and it was in some bigger blogs as well. This is kind of like, think of it as like maybe an electric bike. If you weren't able to ride a bike up a hill, now you can, ride it with the electric bike or with these electric exoskeletons. A little bit silly. I don't think I'm going to be testing them. I did reach out to them because I saw other YouTubers were talking about it. I have not heard back. I don't expect to hear back. Generally, brands don't give me things because I'm a little too honest, I think, in general. And, it is what it is. But if you guys want to see me test this out, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll spend the whatever it is, $600 on it and test it out for you. But talking about sponsorships and gear, I don't do any sponsorships or commercials on this channel. I want to stay independent, editorially, unbiased, clear. I don't want you guys wondering whether somebody has paid me to do something. If you're into cameras, there was recently some blow up at a camera company called Insta360. They were asking people to not do a tag that said it was promoted and do a biased review. I've been approached by Insta360. I've been approached by pretty much everyone else you've seen, talking about gear. I've probably been approached by them as well, but I don't do that. I support this channel by affiliate links. So there's a huge REI sale, the biggest of the year. It happens today. It went on today. I put a link to that under the video here. So if you're going to buy gear, anything, it can be on sale or not, use that link to help me out. I get a little commission and you don't pay anything extra. Same for Amazon. If you're buying a book or trash bags or whatever, please use that. That helps me do this without having to try to sell you green shakes or Chinese hiking boots or whatever it might be. So I appreciate all your help there, and I could not do it without you. All right, Android satellite. There hasn't been much new, but somebody was sleuthing in the new code for Google Maps, and they found these messages that say you can send a location update every 15 minutes via satellite, and there's a cap for the day, which is interesting. What this kind of tells me, I'm going to infer a little bit. I don't know anything officially, but the fact that it's in there is telling me that maybe when the Google Pixel 9 comes out, probably in the fall, maybe October, that maybe there's going to be some sort of a free satellite service, just like the iPhone has a free satellite SOS, that the Google Pixel 9 will probably have that with some form of automatic location sharing or manual location sharing that won't cost anything since there is a cap on it there. But kind of interesting. As stuff comes out, I will share it with you. And if you haven't seen my other videos, I talk about some of the leaks and things that are happening with satellite communications on the phone there. So you can check that out. REI, I noticed that my local REI here in Tustin, California stopped doing gear rentals. And then I dug into it a little bit more and I realized that a lot of REIs, especially here in California, have stopped doing gear rentals. There are still some locations that do it around the country, but I think this is a pretty bad thing. I'm guessing they didn't make money and it was probably pretty labor intensive on the gear rentals. But I think for a company like REI that talks about inclusion and getting people access to the outdoors, taking away the ability to try out gear or rent gear for people who aren't able to drop like, $1,000 on a tent, a backpack, and, sleeping bag is not a great thing. But I get it. They need to make money, but you can still do it. Like here on the map, you can still do it in some places. And if you haven't used this before, it's a great way if you want to travel without your backpack or you have friends who want to go backpacking with you. Just rent the gear. No need to buy anything. June 1st is National Trails Day. There's events going on. The idea is that you can give back by helping clean up and maintain some of the trails. There are events all over the country. And it's a good way just to kind of remind people, at least like on the news and the local news and everything, that the trails are out there and they need some help. They're not as well funded as the military or other departments like that in this country. So get involved, do something. What I do is just very simple in terms of giving back to the trails, aside from trying to make trail guides and help people get out. But I just bring a Ziploc bag, a gallon Ziploc bag, and if there's trash, I just put it in there and take it off the trail. So you don't need National Trails Day to help give back. Also, the Leave No Trace group have put all of their courses up for free online. So if you want to learn more about Leave No Trace and the right way to leave things intact and not disturb the wilderness, you can go watch those videos. They're up there now. There is a new kind of mini through hike. It's called the Denver Orbital. It's 177 miles around Denver. I love this. I love this idea. They basically, I think, strung together trails, maybe created some new ones to do this hike, which is such a cool idea. I wish more communities would do something like this. If you're local and you just want to get a hike in after work or whatever, you can, section hike this. Or if you're a longer term hiker and you just want to do something a little bit different, this could be a cool option. But really cool, and kudos to anyone, making new trails out there and making new ways to experience the trails. The Denver Orbital, maybe I'll do some sections of it. I got to get to Colorado at some point this year. It's been a long time. Speaking of Colorado, the NOAA, which is the National Oceanographic and Atmosphere, so I don't know, put it up on the screen. They were testing out a new method to measure altitudes and do surveying. They've been testing it over the last 15 years. Part of that testing was done in the Colorado Rockies on the 14ers. They also flew over the entire United States to measure gravity all over. But in the process of testing this new system out, they were able to update the altitudes of some of the Colorado 14ers, a bunch of them actually. So they have some new altitudes, not by much. I think just a foot or two, maybe at the most. Some of the order moved around, but that system was tested. Those 14ers are resurveyed, reclassified. And I'd expect this to be rolling out maybe to the rest of the country as the NOAA measures the rest of the high peaks around the country. So the peak that you've done and got your summit sign with the altitude on there might be changing, gives you another excuse to get out there and hike. But anyway, kind of cool. I've had some friends and viewers reach out to me from Yosemite. They say the water is rushing, the water is flowing there as all these snowpack melts. Very cool. I hope to get up there again this summer. A couple things to note. There is a couple projects that have been coming to fruition. There is a, new experience at Bridevale Falls That's just done this year. There is a new welcome center when you come in, and there's also a new exploration center, I think, by Curry Village. I look forward to checking those out. Also know that you need to get timed reservations in the summer. I notice it starts at 5 a.m. If you're an early bird like me, you just drive in at 4:45 and there's no one at the gate and you don't have to worry about it. And it looks like, according to this, it's totally legal, so you can do that. Also, if you're hiking there, two other things: the JMT between, I think, Clark Point and the Panorama Trail. Kind of, if you go up the Mist Trail, the one on the other side, the JMT, there was a rockfall, and that is closed, so plan accordingly. And also, after 5 or 6 years, the High Sierra glamping huts have reopened. They're already sold out for 2024, but the lottery is going to open, I think, in the fall for 2025. I'm definitely going to enter. I would love to do this. There's a hot meal, hot dinner, hot breakfast, box lunches, and I think solar showers as well. Over a few days in the high country of Yosemite. It looks really cool. I hope to do it, but I'll put a link to that, as I told you before, under this if you want to try to get into that lottery. Highly recommend trying it. I've never done it, but I would love to. Some more good news when it comes to public lands. The San Gabriel National Monument here in Southern California has been expanded by about, I think, 106,000 acres. If you're local, it kind of went westward. So I think the area where Switzer Falls and everything is now part of the National Monument. What does that mean? It just offers some protection for that area. It was just forest land before, national forest land, which could be used for development, but now it's protected. Hopefully it gets a little more funding, a little bit more care. But that happened. There was also a bill proposal that went in to form the Chuckwalla National Monument, which would be, again, if you're in Southern California, the area around Mecca where Ladder and Painted Canyon is, and it would also propose to expand Joshua Tree. So that's exciting news. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. There's a new state park here in California. It's going to open in June. I'll check it out. I'm not sure if there's going to be a lot of hiking there, but I will check it out. And if it looks cool, I will share that with you. And there's also pretty big news about the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM. The BLM, they call them, I think, the largest landlord in the United States. 10% of the country's land mass is managed by the BLM. And generally what BLM land did, or the management process, it would be focused on leasing out the lands to people who did like oil drilling or mining, kind of industrial uses of the lands, and conservation and recreation didn't really come into the guidelines and consideration when using the land, even though there's tons of great BLM land that has great hiking and, natural wonders that probably in any other country in the world would be a national park. But what happened was they approved updated guidelines for this. It was something that was open for public debate for a long time. There was input from indigenous groups. But now when the BLM decides how land is going to be used, they have to balance out not only can we suck oil out of the ground, but also, does this area have recreational value? Does it have value as an important indigenous lands? So that there's a more balanced approach to, leasing out BLM land. So that was interesting. Also important to note that this is done by the Secretary of the Interior, who controls the BLM. If there is a new administration in Washington, they could just reverse all this and say, take all the oil you want or whatever it might be. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but that could happen. So it's not anything protected by legislation. And in fact, the last administration moved the headquarters of the BLM from Washington, I think, to Denver, somewhere in Colorado. And they told everyone who worked there, you either move or you're out of a job. And I think 87% of the BLM quit or, retired. And, as somebody who's owned a business in my life with employees, I can't imagine how catastrophic it would be if I lost 87% of my workforce. So that happened. It's politics. It is what it is. Also worth noting, the National Park Service is being sued because some parks have switched to cashless entry and people wanted to enter with cash and they were turned away. And now they're getting sued. It's a tricky one. I saw when Death Valley went cashless in 2023, they took in like $22,000 in cash and it cost them $40,000 just to have processing it, handling the cash and everything. So they went cashless. Those little kiosks when you come there and you just use a credit card to buy an entry. It's a complicated one. Ideally, the national parks are all free for everyone. I think the entry fees take up 10 to 15% of the budget of the national parks. The other part being taxpayer funded and concessions. Maybe they can find a clever way to do it. Maybe just make, up the concessions 10, 15%. So a coffee is now, instead of $4, it's $4.60 or whatever it might be. But it's interesting. Hopefully brighter minds than mine will figure this out, but that's happening. I came across this cool video from some trail workers working in Muir Woods. I have a guide to Muir Woods if you want to go there. It's just right outside San Fran. Beautiful place. But they had a really clever way to repair a trail. There was a huge redwood tree that fell down, and instead of moving it or chopping it up, they built stairs out of it and made those stairs part of a trail rehab on the Ben Johnson Trail. So very cool. I love that. I love those clever kind of trail building things. And the more I hike, the more I geek out on trail building. So that's out there. Also, trails. I've been hiking quite a bit lately. I've noticed this is the spring here in Southern California. It's rattlesnake season. They're out all over the place. I've seen a bunch of them. So be careful where you step and, don't wear headphones. Also here, if you're in Southern California, on the trail, the old Mount Wilson Trail, that bear you probably have heard about before is evidently active and out and about. People have been posting about it, so keep your eyes open there. There was another thing I saw, Mount Charleston Wilderness, which is outside of Las Vegas. If you ever go to Las Vegas and you want to do some awesome hiking, go to Mount Charleston Wilderness and go hike the top of Mount Charleston. I have a guide for that on my site. It's an epic hike. It's definitely underrated. But I always saw these wild horses. I never knew anything about them, but evidently they're a thing. The Forest Service wanted to get rid of them or relocate them, and the locals have signed a petition, and they're kind of fighting back to keep them in the area. So if you get a chance to go to Mount Charleston, it's covered in snow right now. I just checked. But if you can go there later in the summer, definitely worth doing. Build an extra day into a Las Vegas trip just to go hike Mount Charleston. You will not regret it. Also saw, in terms of animals, Catalina, there was a proposal to get rid of the deer, which is a non-native species on Catalina, by hunting them from helicopters. Always something crazy, right? Always something like out of a Planet of the Apes movie. And obviously there's pushback on that. But that's another great hike, the Trans-Catalina Trail. It's very green right now. You need to kind of plan it, or you could do it last minute. If you've never done that, highly recommend the Trans-Catalina too. As long as we're talking about animals making a comeback, I saw this article about the desert pupfish making a comeback after 25 years. These are critically endangered. You find them in springs in the desert here in the Southwest. You can go see them up in Death Valley. I think Ash Meadow, the wildlife refuge, you can see them, desert pupfish. They're doing better, so that's a cool thing. That's what I have for you. I also want to thank Justin and the JustTrek Podcast for having me at their 4th anniversary live events. You can check that out on the podcast called JustTrek. Again, there'll be a link for that underneath. Also on YouTube. And thanks for everyone who came up and said hello. I love meeting everyone. It's why I do this. It's definitely not to be a millionaire. So if you see me out on the trails, please come and say hello. I've been seeing lots of folks lately, and I love it. So thank you for that. And thank you for SoCal Edison for having me speak on hiking safety. If you have an organization or a group or a company and you would like me to talk about hiking and how to hike safely and experiences I've had, please reach out to me. I love doing that. The more people I can get out hiking safely, the better I think everything will be for the outdoors. More advocates for the outdoors and protecting the outdoors and enjoying the outdoors. All right, guys, anything you want me to check out, please leave me a comment. And if you want me to check out those mechanical legs, I can't even imagine myself putting those on. But anyway, let me know. Maybe I'll do it just for comedic value. All right, guys, see you out on the trails.